Dun, 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 dun. Can you see that? Ladies and gentlemen, Jay McInnes, Sharp Real Estate Group. Today, we've got some interesting facts, points of interest to go through. We are on episode 279, is it, Al? This is episode 279. We'll come up with a title shortly, but essentially current events that are taking place out there. We've got a lot of government comments towards the market, how they're gonna help the people. We had a little budget reveal yesterday, 430 pages of love, Al. Goddamn encrypted information on how they're gonna extract more and more, but we'll get into that. So let's start the day with the entry point of the market, ye old first-time buyers. So they've been given an ounce of assistance. So they've been the first amongst government amortization, loosening, extending. Ask your bank for further amortizations because you're going through hardship upon said renewal. Yada, yada, yada. We've been talking about that for the last 6 to 9 months, that the banks have been mandated to be a lot more flexible because we don't want any mass foreclosures coming in to this 18-month away federal election. So the banks are being more lenient, but first-time homebuyers specifically have just been allotted for their first mortgage, of course, not for renewal. 30-year amortizations up from 25. So what's that gonna do? That's going to push the amount of time frame which you are paying interest on that mortgage amount for. Keep your payments a little more at bay, with a few caveats, of course. This is for new construction only. So you want to go out and be that first one on the toilet seat in that master bathroom. I'm not allowed to say that anymore. In that primary bathroom, then you can take on this 30-year amortization. Now, this is only also if you have less than 20% down. As we all know, a lot of pre-sales require potentially 20% down, so those would be exempt. But under 20% down, you're in, and the property, of course, has to be under $1 million. So that pre-sale condo with 15% down on a $600,000 or $700,000 one bedroom for your first place, you now have the flexibility at 30-year amortization. Now it's interesting because this reminded me quickly of the motherland, Al, the center of the earth, if you will, where it all happened.
Oh, here we go again.
To spark yours truly, good old Australia, where the beaches are clean and the liquor is flowing. What they did, early teens, because they saw a huge rush of new buyers as well. Additionally, from China, their proximity to China is a lot more convenient than ours, so I think they got a lot more than we did. But reformed and refined their rules in 2015, which brought them to what they do today, which is foreign buyers are only allowed to purchase brand new inventory. So what does that do? For the most part, foreign investment contributes to the creation of new housing supply rather than inflating the prices of existing residential housing. So what do we have here? We have our local coined housing crisis here, rental crisis, affordability crisis. Everything's a goddamn crisis now. But what we've done is allowed those foreign buyers with their money to come in here and buy whatever they want. In Australia, they mandated that this must stimulate the building, the development, the new home economy. So if we mandate that they're only allowed to buy new, that will keep that going without adding pressure to our existing Australians to not have what happened here, which was everyone can come in, buy whatever the hell they want. Now we've got sky-high prices and bottom basement levels of inventory based on the immigration that has taken place. The policy is aimed to increase housing availability for Australian residents by directing foreign investment into development of new properties. So as that continued to play out there, of course, pricing over there as well is very similar to here. The high end over there is dramatically higher than us, but we're talking about the entry level here. So it does not put a strain on the resale supply to the domestic people to create our level of housing crisis. But anyway, that was a side note. That's kind of what this reminded me of, but very too little too late in my opinion. They should have done this, of course, back when those guys did it, because we were going through the same issues at the same time. But needless to say, 30-year amortizations now for our first-time buyers domestically, which leads us on to our next one here for additionally first-time buyers, your RRSP plans pre this information release, $35,000 per person max. Hold out your RRSP, put towards your first home. Collective, you're in a relationship, you have a couple, you can put those together. So $70,000 towards the first home, you have 15 years to repay. Now they're extending that to $60,000 per person. So $120,000 for that couple towards the first home, 15 years to pay. So what we're seeing here as things have kind of gone on, and not that this is new, but I think we've got people looking at, I'm buying stock for my retirement, RSP plans, I'm buying real estate for my retirement. So I personally believe we should have full flexibility on that RRSP account to use whatever we've got to put towards that home, because that too is looked at as very much so a retirement plan in itself. Still has the 15 years to pay back, but it's kind of strange, especially with the pricing as it is right now, that we're still kind of hindered. Nonetheless, $60,000 per person from 35 is a huge increase, which I think will be very welcome to that segment of the market. Next, Airbnb crackdown is here. So we saw back at the end of last year, $50 million was going to be put forth over 3 years to help local governments enforce restrictions against short-term rentals. The funding will begin January 1, 2024. Federal government said January 1st plans to deny income tax deductions by operating short-term rental units. They're not complying with the municipal regulations. So that has now come into play, and I have no anecdotal answers to this yet on what this has done. The majority of people I have discussed are still just taking those checks, keeping their Airbnbs in place. If letters start coming out at mass, maybe this will change it. But at this point, apparently they're now out there and searching for you.
Knock, knock. Miami PD, get down!
You bad investors, you. But again, no massive news on that yet. Another thing that's been discussed recently, mortgage fraud prevention by way of income verification. So a portal for brokers to check SIN numbers and income confirmations as opposed to just checking your NOA, which is what they use to do your pre-qualifications when you're getting a mortgage. NOAs, I mean, no one would fathom doing it, but I guess you could Photoshop that document and then push it forward, and a little wee bit of fraud gets dusted under the rug. Not that the brokers know, but this can obviously happen, and then they're in the market based on lies. Federal government today confirmed plans to consult the mortgage industry on developing income verification tools through the CRA. This announcement is part of the government's new housing strategy entitled Solving the Housing Crisis, Canada's Housing Plan. They've got another plan, Al. Independently verifying borrowers' income helps financial institutions detect, deter any type of fraud, misrepresentation, and increase the cost of mortgages for all borrowers. So the fraudsters are screwing you, but I'll show you a more realistic circumstance of what's happening in a second. Budget 2024, we're going to get into shortly as well. Proposed government's intention to consult with the mortgage industry to make tools available through CRA to verify borrowing income mortgages. Government is also promising additional funds to CRA to crack down on real estate fraud. So what you see here, this kind of came up to lightly when we had all that money laundering circumstance. The Vancouver, what was it? The Vancouver method, they called it. People mastered money laundering tactics here. Which is similar to, it's not similar to, but same results as this mortgage fraud. So if I say I make $500,000 a year and I only make $250,000, I buy that home based on that fraudulent application. Could I really afford it? No, but I've got it anyway. Now that home is in the database of MLS, looked at as a credible comparable to the next buyer. Same thing with mortgage fraud, or sorry, with money laundering. I've laundered all my money through the goddamn casinos or however else they were doing it. I go and buy a piece of real estate, $5 million. Now that 5 million bucks is in the database. So when I'm going to sell my place, and that was my neighbor, okay, well he sold for 5 million, the market's up a little bit more, I'm gonna list at 5.25. I'm using that unlawful comp, which they used fraudulent mortgage docs or laundered money to create. So what does that do? That creates a fabricated market, fabricated comparables. Could a real life taxpayer that actually had that money, could they have or would they have bought that home for 5? I don't know, we'll never know. But the problem is, even if that home is found guilty, that John created tax fraud, Liam laundered the money, that sale is still benchmarked and done. That sale is still being looked at as a comparable. That sale can't be extracted back out of the market because it was a fraudulent sale. So it hurts the market most in that way. Like taxes, once they get implemented, they very rarely get canceled. That sale cannot be canceled. So it just adds and adds and adds, and it's more credibility, fabricated credibility, but it's more credibility. Jane coming in and looking at the comps who has no idea about any of this, she just sees that as a sale. Okay, well it's a credible sale, so we're gonna go with it. So fraudulent mortgage applications act in a similar way and obviously can hurt the market. So they're looking into that. They didn't say exactly how, but they're gonna have that correspondence, assumably with whatever the mortgage broker's little club of people is. I don't know what their network's called, but with them and CRA. So hopefully that comes sooner than later to prevent any further of that stuff. Now, 2024 budget, will it affect you? Federal housing plan details. So the main point specifically about the housing, which was brought up, is of course they need to build housing. Now he got into power in November of 2015 and has essentially done nothing to assist the housing market, in my opinion, whatsoever. Now all of a sudden, 18 months out from an election, he's obviously getting shit on left, right, and center for everything, with credible respect, naturally, but that's not for me to say. This isn't a political show, Al, okay? I'm not allowed to put those opinions out there. Anyway, they're now coming to the table with a million, as we discussed last week. Every week you see money going out, we're paying for this, we're doing this, look what we're doing, we're trying, we're helping, we're here, we're making Canada cheap again. Plans to build 3.87 million new homes by 2031, including 2 million net new homes in addition to the 1.87 million homes that CMHC forecast to be built by that year. Now, that all sounds great. And when you headline read, oh, the Liberals care, look what they're doing, they're finally doing something about this. You dig in one layer off the onion, that is 552,857 homes a year consistently for 7 years. Now, the first reason why the construction market has essentially stopped, it's not stopped, but has slowed down dramatically, is because of interest rates. Builders, developers can't make the project make sense with the amount of profit they need to make for the risk they're taking and the legwork they have to go through to do so. So they're not building. That's that. I believe that's 95% of the reason that the construction industry has stopped. Can't get enough people, yes, but it's all back to the money. If the money was there in the form of affordable borrowing, they could find the people, pay the fees, yada, yada, yada. But it's not. So they're not being built for that reason at scale to what we need to see. So that 552,000 homes a year for 7 years straight sounds great. How are they going to do that? Well, in 2023, housing starts were 223,000, so less than half. And that was a 7% decrease, not increase, decrease from 2022, which was 240,590 housing starts. Now, they're saying, look at us, we're doing it all. We've got decreasing housing starts as is, but now that this 430-page book is on the table that Mrs. Chrystia Freeland, I don't like saying that name, has created for us, now we're gonna do it, and we're gonna double it, and all those other details that that market's been dealing with are moot point, and now we've got a plan, so we're gonna stick to it. So as you can see, They've got a long way to go, double what they're doing now. And in digging, 1974, Al, what happened in 1974? That was 7 years before I was even a thought in my parents' mind. 1974 was the highest housing completions ever in Canada, 257,000. Now, let's picture 1974. Just yon fields, Al. You could just look as far as the eye can see, just beautiful Canadian nothingness. Out where I live, just farms, cows, horses, nothing. So when they're cookie cuttering mass neighborhoods and suburbs in the 70s, which was when my house was built, very easy. Cut the lot out, clear it, build it, next, next, next. Everything in the goddamn community looks the exact same almost, with slight variations, and they're stamping them out. So 1974, 257,000. Even with today's technology of let's build up 40 stories, 50 stories, goddamn 65 stories, they still can't beat that number. There's still 25,000 plus units per year off of that number. So when you dig in one layer of the onion, it really goes to show, well, how in the hell are they going to do this? It's assumably not possible. God forbid something the government said was maybe not a lie, but they just have no way of getting to it. And that number is also amusingly in line with the CMHC forecast from, I believe, last year, that we needed 3.5 million homes to restore housing affordability by 2030. So they were like, we got a problem here, rock in a hard place. What are we gonna do? We gotta tell these people that we're gonna build them houses so prices come down and people have options. Where have the pain points come from? Well, CMHC, who's also a government body, said we need 3.5 million homes by 2030. Let's give them some credibility. Let's line the numbers up. That sounds good. How the hell are we gonna build over 500,000 homes? It's never been done by half of that before. Worry about that later. We'll just deke around those questions in the press conferences and hope the people trust us. So that was a big one for housing, which I hope you don't believe because nothing credible supports it whatsoever. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't true. Other things we've seen them bring out in the last little bit, no GST for rental housing stock. Why not put no GST on all housing stock? Why not dumb down the interest rate specifically and exclusively for development of housing stock? They have the credibilities to do all of this, yet they only pick the smallest things and then fabricate these big foundational things along the way with nowhere near enough getting done. And it just looks like it's to build, I don't know, the voter base. I don't want to jump to these conspiracy theories too quickly, but anyway. So some other points that they've made in this budget: additional $15 billion allocated to apartment construction loan program to ensure construction of at least 30,000 new rental apartments. Loan program, in theory, that money will come back to them. It's not going to pull a Biden and just give those student loans to the taxpayer. So assumably a good thing there, getting those rental complexes built. 10 million, this is interesting, 10 million invested into skilled trade awareness and readiness programs to motivate high school students to pursue careers in the skilled trades. Now, obviously in BC, we've got BCIT, which is the trade school, among others. I think this should have been done over the last 15 years, over the last 10 years, 9 years that he's been involved. 2015, we were well on the way to this housing circumstance. And again, this was obviously an oversight. Well, we're gonna have enough staff to do this. We're gonna have enough people in the industries. Clearly there's a deficit now of trades workers doing this stuff. So these programs, I don't know if that's just marketing. I don't know if that's giving money to BCIT for marketing, but I think that's a very good thing. And again, it's never too little too late, because hopefully that works and stuff gets built for, again, future generations. It's not going to be dealt with now, but it's a good thing. $50 million directed to foreign credential recognition program, specifically to support residential construction and assist skilled trade workers in building more homes. So helping skilled newcomers gain their first Canadian work experience in the profession or field, study of the construction industry. So your cab driver is an engineer. There's a general one. Your cab driver is a goddamn doctor and he's driving a cab. Why? Because the prerequisites to get to the Canadian standard, apparently we're so much higher than every other goddamn country in our standards, is keeping all these foreign, highly educated people out of exactly what we need. Construction. I'm not even gonna start on the medical. I'm sure everyone can agree we need more doctors. So a program put in place, I think 50 million is on the light side. All they can really do is create framework or some level of schooling or pre-qualification program to bring these people up to par, or at least find out what they've got that can be used and then filter them in somewhere faster. I've got my sister-in-law, doctor from Mexico, pediatrician. She's been taking tests and of all sorts for the last 4 years to try and be so here. I don't think we're that far ahead of babies being looked after here as opposed to babies being looked after there. Call me ignorant, but I think it's ridiculous. So putting money towards that sort of thing to hopefully blend these new people in at their skill levels, not just bring them in, throw them in a cab, throw them in some other bullshit.
Whoa!
Not the cabin's bullshit, but it's bullshit compared to what they could be doing for us, for themselves and their own family as a whole. So that's a good one too. Now, a big one, generally speaking, capital gains increase, personal and corporate. This is going to affect real estate immensely. Personal level capital gains, right now, 50% of any capital gains is exposed to your nominal tax bracket. That is changing up to $250,000. 50% of that $250,000 gain or less is exposed to your personal tax bracket. Over $250,000, you're now at 66.7% of that gain exposed to your personal tax bracket. Corporate capital gains, all gains now 66.7% of gain exposed to the corporate tax bracket. So this is a big change in the investment world, which of course incorporates real estate, in people's portfolio management, which very commonly incorporates real estate here. Foreign investment coming in. Is Canada worth investing in anymore at these rates? This opens up a much bigger can of worms, but directly, they're saying it's going to affect, I think, the top 1.8 or 0.8% of the country, which if you think about it, let's just say I'm inheriting a summer cabin from my parents who've had it for 50 years, and then I'm going to sell that. That inheritance now being over $250,000, if it's held with me personally, is now obviously at this new rate. So there's a lot of ways that this is going to affect people. Again, it's the traditional tax the rich, give to the poor, and their excuse for this is that, okay, we're gonna take the money in this format over here from the rich people, and we're gonna put it towards that housing initiative that we've put together. So the factual evidence here is that the tax is gonna come in. Will the tax, in what way will the tax be redistributed in the way that sounds perfect, but is very subjective? Well, we'll never know. And that's the scary thing, that the tax brackets have gone up for all these people you've accumulated, your parents have accumulated over the years, and of course, it's gonna get hit hard. So, capital gains, tax benefit still fully in place on your principal residence, outside of the fact that you now have to wait 2 years of holding that residence due to the speculation tax to sell without any sort of tax implementation on that asset. New tax on residential, they're talking about new tax layer on residentially zoned bare land, vacant land. So if you're holding a lot to build on or sell, there's going to be a new, we don't know how that's going to be structured out yet, but there's going to be a new layer of tax on that. I was going to go into this further on the amount of money that the federal government is now going to be pushing us further into federal debt, but I'm not. We're too long in now. Those are the things that directly and are most impactful on the real estate market today and in general. So if you have, don't even read it, go to your credible news sources And there are plenty of highlights on this new federal budget and the levels of debt that are going to be entered into here by the current government, how they're justifying that, and how they're stating that this money will be spent. And will it affect you? I guess we'll never know.